subscribers, thanks for stopping by the J Shrey Way. I'm going to do a movie review today for one that I was very curious and pretty excited about for at least a year or two now. It is The Black Phone. This one is directed by Scott Derickson, and that's what really had me hyped up for this one because it's the first time he's done a horror movie since Sinister in 2012, which was the first time I've probably been petrified in a theater seat. I'll never forget the first time I saw that movie. It's one of my all-time favorite horror films. He went on to do the first Doctor Strange for Marvel and then had creative differences for Multiverse of Madness and ended up doing this instead. So in a way, it kind of felt like a clap back, like I'm going to give you guys something better than the Marvel formula, and I was really excited to see him take something into his own hands again. The trailer has been imprinted in my brain because it's pretty much played in front of every movie for the past 6 months. I mean, anything over PG-13. And yeah, it's a pretty good trailer, but it showed a lot, I thought. And I was right. I feel like outside of the trailer, this movie doesn't give you much more. They did put a lot in that trailer, which is kind of a rookie mistake in 2022. But I will say this movie is very good still. I've heard some comparisons to Sinister. I mean, the story is about children being kidnapped, but much more than that. I mean, the tone, the atmosphere, the style, it's obviously the same director, but I gotta say, it didn't feel that bold and big to me. It kind of felt like Sinister's little brother in a way. I don't know if this was intentional, but one of the first times you see the grabber, he changes his mask a lot throughout the movie, and he has one mask with no mouth, and it looked a lot like the Sinister mask, the collar and the no mouth aspect to it, which I thought could have been a fun little Easter egg, and I promise it's not that big of a spoiler because they do put in the trailers that the expressions change on the mask. This was based off of a short story by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son, and it feels very Stephen King-esque. I mean, you got the crazy bullies, you got the ghostly kids walking around whispering things in your ears. It has that Stephen King feel, but it does feel a little more dialed back than most Stephen King movies. It doesn't get all that wild. It does have a realistic feel even while they mix the supernatural stuff, but I think a lot of this movie is left up for interpretation, and it doesn't give you answers. It's very ambiguous. By the end, you don't get a lot of answers on stuff that is big points of the movie. I mean, you don't get a lot of the grabber. There's a psychic, supernatural aspect with one of the characters, and it's just kind of there as a plot device, but it doesn't actually get fleshed out that well. So I guess I would say the movie's just a compilation of cool ideas, cool scenes, but it's not really a whole meal. It felt more like an appetizer the entire time. And I know I sound negative, I really do like this movie. It definitely just kind of feels like a short story stretched out for a full-length movie, which is similar to another movie this year, Men, which I didn't review, but I think this is way better than that, but they both felt like isolated short stories that were really interesting ideas that really didn't bring much more to the table than what's in the trailers. I don't know the entire short story. I know they give us more context to a lot of things, and it might make it better or worse. I do like ambiguous stories. I like when things don't answer a lot for you, but whenever you're just isolating us in one room and there's not really any explanation to why or how or any of that, I just felt like it was kind of missing something. It was kind of empty, and that's no pun intended because a lot of it takes place in an empty room, which is where the good shit goes down. I went in wanting to see a crazy Ethan Hawke performance, and I left loving the kid actors. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things in the reviews. A lot of the reviews were blowing this movie out of proportion in my opinion, but they were right about the kid actors being incredible. I mean, they were riveting. They were commanding my attention. There's a lot of emotional stuff that happens with them. They have rough home lives, and some of those scenes play out like you're in the room, like a neighbor that walked in and saw some of this shit going down with the family drama, but you have no place to step in and say anything, and it's just disturbing and sad, and it's very realistic. They are just great though. They really carry the movie. A few scenes in, I was just like, I love this little girl. Like, her performance was so powerful. I believe her name's Madeline McGraw, and I don't know if she's done much else horror, but it's crazy that so many kid actors bring their A game in horror. I mean, the It kids, the Stranger Things kids, there's been so many young horror performances that are just iconic, and they're so good. And this is another strong example of this, and sometimes those kid actors just kind of go forgotten. I hope these kids go somewhere with their careers. I would like to see more from them. The main actor is Mason Thames, I think is how you say his name. He plays Finney, and Finney's awesome. I mean, he has a good arc. I mean, he has you rooting for him the entire time, and it's such dark shit we're watching, and it's sad that we get enjoyment out of it, but that shows that these guys knew what they were doing. These creators, these writers, these directors, and this kid actor, man, they brought their A game, all of them did, and I just think we needed more time with the heaviness. I feel like it's very sad and dark and dirty. The whole time you feel dirty, especially the build up to the grabber. Before you really see him, it's done perfectly. I really thought Ethan Hawke was the best when he wasn't on screen. It's not that his performance is bad, but the way they shot him from a distance and the way they went out of focus and stuff like that and just built up to him, because he doesn't pop up immediately in the movie. And I thought the way they handled it was eerie. It was the most memorable parts of the movie to me, and the shit that'll really stick with me and creep me out like some of the things in Sinister did. We also get an appearance by James Ransone in this, who is just an underrated actor. He was in Sinister 1 and 2 as Deputy So-and-so, and then It Chapter 2. I love seeing this guy, and he plays a pretty cool role in this one as well. Once you get to the basement and all the dread and the conversations with Finney and the Grabber, I just thought it was interesting and it was alright, but the Grabber didn't really land for me. He didn't feel that effective, but I feel like the moral of the story is people like this just exist and we don't know why. And in that point, it is done well. And I think he has some very disturbing body language at some points, but he didn't completely put me in fear the whole movie. I do think this does make Ethan Hawke the MVP of the year so far. Between this, Moon Knight, and The Northman, I've really liked all that he's done. And he's been a pivotal part to all of those projects. I just thought when we do get to the black phone part and when we're down there in the basement, it's very entertaining whenever these phone calls are happening. I'm not going to tell you exactly what if you haven't seen it, but it's creative. Some of the filming techniques and some of the jump scares. They had jump scares in this that were really good. Scott Derickson, I think, is really good at jump scares. They're never that forced, and they're always just, what the fuck? Like, they're wild. They're ones that don't, like, seem stereotypical. They really come up unexpected is the best way to put it. Yeah, some of these conversations on the phone were really intense, really eerie. Some of them were even funny, and then some of them were very emotional. There was a few times where I teared up, but I am an easy cry, as I've said before. But you do get a few really hard-hitting conversations and memories of characters, and that's when the movie really gets good, is when it dives into that and puts you in, shit, yeah, these people were here at one point and they weren't, and it's a fucking tragedy that people can just go off like that. And the movie does a really unique way at talking about that and making it entertaining, but also making your stomach sink, because the context of it. I don't want to say too much, but it is very thought-provoking and deep dialogue that I enjoyed a lot of. I thought the coolest part of the movie were these supernatural visions. I'm not going to tell you exactly how they come into play, but they are shot on like a Super 8 film footage type of way, like found footage, kind of how Sinister was in the home movies. It's very similar, almost the exact same thing, and it should be. It should be a trademark for Scott Derickson. I think those were some of the most brilliant parts of Sinister, and they are some of the most best parts of this movie as well. The Grabber's mask is also very striking. I mean, when we first saw that teaser poster, it's fucking incredible, and I hate walking by the theater and even seeing it anymore. I was happy to see the mask is designed by Tom Savini, who is kind of a legend in the horror community. He's been around for a lot of big projects. He's done a lot of makeup, prosthetics, and masks, so a lot of people know him if you love horror and the behind-the-scenes stuff, and it's cool to see him just continue to work. The more I think about this movie and fill in the blanks in my head, the better the movie is. There's some answers I've given myself that I don't want to tell you guys because I don't want to spoil it for you, but if I really think about them, I think it makes the movie somewhat better, but I just was a little annoyed at how much I had to fill in on my own. But the movie is kind of straightforward in a sense. I mean, you get what you get in the trailer. It's an abduction story, layered in dread and a dirty film texture, and it just feels like something that happened that we didn't hear about, and it could almost be a believable story because stuff like that has happened for decades now, and I feel like that's what this movie really is about, is this shit happens in the corner of the world, some of us don't even hear about it, and that's why this movie did feel kind of small in scale. I think that was the point of it, just to show that this is looked at as a little thing almost, because it has gone ignored so many times in the past. So Sinister's little brother isn't something to be ashamed of at all. I thought the Black Phone was super enjoyable. I was not bored at all. For this one, I'm gonna go 3.4 out of a possible 5 Goldblums. That's it for this review, guys. Let me know if you plan on seeing this or if you have, and what is your favorite Scott Derickson horror movie, because he's done stuff outside of this and Sinister. But if you are a big Sinister fan, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. It's the Jay Shrey Way. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. See you next time.